Today, we're diving into a single, powerful chapter from the Bible that's almost like a user manual for human relationships. It's Matthew 18. In it, Jesus gives this radical vision for how a community should handle things like power, conflict, and forgiveness. And believe it or not, it all kicks off with a really competitive question from his closest friends.
So this is it. This is the question that starts the whole conversation. And you've got to understand, this wasn't some quiet, philosophical question they were pondering over tea. No, no. The sources tell us they were actively arguing about it. This was a real, competitive, who's going to be number one kind of question.
Okay, so to get where they're coming from, you have to realize what they were thinking. They saw Jesus as a new king who was going to set up an actual physical kingdom, kick out the Roman occupiers and rule from a throne. So they're basically jockeying for position, trying to figure out who's going to be chief of staff and who gets the best cabinet seats in the new administration.
Their question totally gave the game away. It showed that their hearts were still focused on all the wrong things: power, status, ambition. Jesus sees right through it. He identifies this as pride. And this desire for status is the very first problem he sets out to fix. So instead of handing them an org chart with a pecking order, Jesus just completely flips their entire world upside down. He's about to redefine their whole understanding of what it even means to be great. And this shows the contrast perfectly. On one side, you have the world's definition of greatness. It's all about power, influence, being important. But then Jesus brings a little kid into the middle of the group and says, "See this? This is what greatness looks like." He uses a living, breathing person as his object lesson. It's brilliant. Now, to really get how shocking this was, we have to understand the context back then. In the Roman world, children had basically zero status. They were seen as powerless, totally dependent, almost like property. So for Jesus to put a child in the center as the model for greatness, that was absolutely revolutionary. And then, as if that wasn't enough, he doubles down. He says this kind of humility, this childlike dependence, it isn't just the key to being the greatest. It's the very entry requirement. It's the ticket you need just to get in the door. So this idea of humility, it's not just a state of mind. It leads to action. If greatness isn't about promoting yourself, then what is it? Well, Jesus says it's about protecting others, especially the most vulnerable, the ones he calls his little ones. And he does not mess around here. He gives this incredibly graphic warning, talking about a giant millstone, to show just how serious he is about protecting his followers. To lead another believer into sin, well, in his eyes, it's one of the worst things a person can do. To really hammer this point home, Jesus tells a quick story. So picture a community of believers. Let's say it's a flock of 100 sheep, all together, cared for by a shepherd. But what happens if just one of them, just a single sheep out of the 100, wanders off and gets lost? The entire focus of the story suddenly pivots to that one individual. See, the shepherd doesn't just cut his losses and say, "Oh well, 99 is still an A+." No, he leaves the safety of the 99 to go out and actively search for that one lost sheep. That's the incredible value God places on every single person. His will is that not one should be lost. So if every person is that valuable, that naturally leads to the next question, right? What do you do when relationships inside the community break down? When one of those precious sheep hurts another? Well, Jesus gives a clear, practical blueprint for that exact situation. It's a pretty straightforward 3-step process. Step 1, you go to the person directly, privately, just the two of you. If that doesn't work, step 2, you bring 1 or 2 others along as witnesses. And then, only as a last resort, step 3, you bring it to the whole community. And notice the goal isn't to win an argument. The goal is always to gain your brother, to restore the relationship. There's a real genius to this. This whole process is designed to protect people's reputations, to stop gossip before it can even start, and to make sure the focus stays right where it belongs, on healing and reconciliation, not on public shame. And all of this, the humility, valuing each other, healthy conflict, it all leads to the final, foundational theme of the whole chapter. Everything is built on one thing: forgiveness. And yep, it's prompted by another question from the disciples. So Peter steps up, and you can almost hear him thinking he's being super generous here. He asks, "Should I forgive someone up to 7 times?" In his mind, that was probably pushing the absolute limit of grace. But Jesus' answer just blows that whole idea of keeping score right out of the water. 70 times 7? That's not a math problem. It's a metaphor for infinity. He's saying forgiveness isn't a limited resource that you can run out of. It's supposed to be the very air that this new community breathes. And to show them what he means, he tells another parable. It starts with a guy who owes his king 10,000 talents. Now, we have to understand, this is an astronomical amount of money. We're talking more than a person could earn in 1,000 lifetimes. It's literally an unpayable debt. And the king, in an act of incredible mercy, forgives the entire thing, wipes it clean. But then, what does this forgiven guy do? He walks out and finds a fellow servant who owes him 100 denarii, which is basically pocket change in comparison, maybe a few months' wages. And even though he was just forgiven an impossible debt, he refuses to show any mercy and has the guy thrown in jail. The hypocrisy is just staggering. And this brings us to the parable's really powerful and kind of sobering conclusion. Jesus draws a direct line. He says, our willingness to forgive the small debts other people owe us is the clearest sign of whether we've truly understood the massive, impossible debt that we've been forgiven.
So let's bring it all together. The disciples started by asking, who is the greatest? And Jesus' answer is this entire chapter. He's saying true greatness isn't about status or power. It's found in a community built on humility, where every single person is valuable, where conflict is a chance for restoration, and where the whole thing is held together by radical, unlimited forgiveness. So this chapter gives us the blueprint, but the question it leaves us with is a personal one. If forgiveness really is the foundation, what are we building on top of it in our own lives and our own communities?